let's go into how the brain works with consciousness, because I know you want to explain some of that.
Yeah. So
before we get into how AI is going to manipulate the entire human population.
yeah, because one of the things that I was thinking is we covered like how to hack your own mind. And then it's a small jump to say, okay, here's how an artificial intelligence will hack your mind if you're not taking control of it. And this will be an amazing, cool little talent for anybody who's listening to be able to hack their own mind, because you can literally take the variables that create who you are in your mind, adjust them, and then take control of your whole emotional landscape, which is awesome. And then you'll understand when you're starting to take control of those things, how somebody else, like news media or an external source of information or an artificial intelligence, will try to do the same thing. And you'll be able to identify when somebody's trying to influence you or control you, which is kind of cool, give you a lot of freedom. But that story starts with back to the limbic system. Like, it's your defense mechanism. It's always scanning your environment for threats, right? And so that's the portion of your brain that is like your survival structure. It says, is this person a threat? Is this car coming towards me a threat? Am I in this line? Is this animal a threat? But then a second question must be asked. A threat to what? And so that becomes the answer that the mind needs. Like, it needs a laundry list. It's just a logic device, right? Our brain is just a logic device of our central nervous system. And it needs a laundry list to define what it is that we need to defend. Like, if we're given a mission to say, defend this. Okay, well, what is this, right? And so that laundry list of stuff becomes our sense of self. And it's hardwired in that our body is right in the center of this map. It's called a self map, which is a kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? A concept that was brought forth by Antonio Damasio, who's a very famous researcher who did a lot of work on self and the understanding of human psychology and why we do the things that we do. And so this self thing, our body's right in the center of it. So when we have a baseball flying at our heads, that's why we dodge out of the way. Subconsciously, we don't even have control. It just happens. Or like when a fly comes flying near our eye, we blink. That's our limbic system controlling the motion of our body to defend our sense of self, which our body's right in the middle of it. So when we have that adrenaline dump of, seeing that wild animal or whatever it is, that's the body being right in the middle of our sense of self map. Now, just a couple of decades ago, they thought that was it. Our body was our sense of self, and that's what our brain is looking to defend. But then a really cool researcher, I've met him, I've interviewed him. His name is Jim Cohn at University of Virginia. He did a study that showed people can actually be mapped to our sense of self, people around us. And he did it through fMRI study to prove that, brains work the way they do and that this is a real thing. He put some folks through an fMRI and he said, okay.
What is an fMRI?
fMRI is it's an MRI machine that scans every cell of your brain, but then it also, through an extra function, looks at the blood flow and the energy flow within the mind itself in real time. So it basically shows you what's going on with the different sections of the brain. So you can look on a monitor and it comes red and blue and different energy sensations and different blood flow tell you what portions of the brain are doing what in any moment that you're looking at it. So he put a group of folks through this study and he said, okay, I'm going to give you a pair of glasses. There's going to be a LED in there. It's going to give you a flash of light. And then we're going to watch your brain for a few seconds. And then we're going to zap the shit out of you on your ankle.
Okay.
So, and it hurt a little bit. I mean, it didn't do any harm, but it was like, whoa, you jump.
You did this?
No, I've had it done before, but wasn't part of that study. But it hurts. It's like a dog zap collar. It's like the same type of thing, but they put it on your ankle. So they give you the flash of light and they watch the brain. And what they were expecting is what they got, which was the fear center in the brain lit up and the correlates in the brain that create our self map, our sense of self, because our body's right in the center of it. And it's like, okay, there's a threat to the body. So fear came out and the sense of self came out and they saw it in the scan. It's exactly what they expected. The second run, they brought a stranger into the room, put him on a gurney next to the subject in the fMRI machine, and said, okay, we're going to give you the flash of light, but we're going to take the ankle zapper off of you and put it on the stranger. And then we're going to watch your brain, and then we're going to zap the other guy. And I'm like, I'm selling cable rights at this point, right? I set up a popcorn machine. Let's have fun with this thing.
So hold on. One guy gets the flashlight.
Yep.
The other guy gets the zap.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are they wanting to happen?
So what they expect to happen is because their body is no longer in threat, because you're zapping somebody else, they're not going to see fear, and they're not going to see the sense of self correlates, right, in the brain. And that's exactly what they got, exactly what they expected. But what they didn't expect to happen, and what changed the world of understanding of sense of self, was what happened on the third run, where they brought in what's called a familiar, which was somebody that you love or somebody that's part of your life, significant other, coworker, child, parent, friend, somebody that means something to you. And they put them on the gurney next to you as you're in the fMRI machine, give you the flash of light, watch your brain, but then they zap somebody that you love. And the thing that surprised them was that they couldn't tell the first scans and the third scans apart.
Really?
Yeah. So the people that we love and the people in our lives get mapped onto our sense of self and use that same simple defensive self programming that our brain uses to defend against the snake or the bear or whatever. That's why we can now be concerned about losing our job, or be concerned about our friend telling us they're about to lose their job, or we're concerned about grandma's cold turning into a bad flu or whatever. Like, we have feelings for the people around us that we love. This is exactly how the brain does it.
Very, consciousness is, it's very fascinating. I've been watching this guy Greg Braden a lot, and I've been trying to get him on here. I'm hoping he takes the bait here soon. But he was talking about a study that was done with photons in a vacuum. Are you familiar with this?
No.
So they put photons into a vacuum, and they put them in there and study how they move around. And at first, they seem no effect.
Yeah.
Then they put a strand of DNA in, and the photons attach it themselves to the DNA. It sounds like.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to do. They brought in consciousness somehow. So they had somebody watch the photons, and then they had the photons where nobody was watching them. And the photons actually react differently if there's a human being in the room watching the vacuum with the photons in it.
Yeah.
Now, they did a third run where they try to trick the photons, and they watch it through a camera. And if you watch the photons through the camera, they still react the same way as they do if you're in the room watching. But if you're not watching through the camera, then they react the same way as if nobody was in the room and nobody was watching.
Yeah.
How is this?
That's consciousness reaching through the field. And I see that as, if the data needs to be rendered for someone to experience it, that's the loop back through consciousness that makes the loop in quantum mechanics collapse that wave function is what it's called. That resolves the collapse of a wave function. So if you watch it live or you watch it through a camera, you're watching it, period. And so through non-locality, your need of seeing how that data resolves is what makes that difference occur. It doesn't matter how it's delivered to you, it's delivered to you, but you're wired into consciousness, so it reacts differently because you want to experience that moment.